guys, so I've decided to try and make some baking videos. And normally when you see baking videos, when you watch them online, YouTube, whatever, they kind of go through the steps and think, oh yeah, this is what you do, this is what you do. They put it in the oven, pull it out of the oven like 5 seconds later, even though it's supposed to be like 45 minutes. And it's beautiful and there's nothing wrong with it. Well, that never happens in my house. So it's always trial and error in my house. So what I've decided to do is to make videos with you guys and just go through the recipe as if it was my first time. So, and to see if it's hard, if it's easy, if it turns out, or if it's a complete flop. And I have nothing fancy here. I'm just in my little house, my little, not very fancy kitchen. I've got my little stand Bosch here, and just my stuff that I have on hand. So, what I've decided to make this time is French macarons, which I've heard are really hard to make. And so we're gonna give it a try. But I've heard once you get the technique down, it's not that hard. They usually turn out pretty good after that. So with French macarons, these are actually gonna be chocolate because I love chocolate. So you're gonna have 100 grams of ground almond flour, 170 grams of confectioner sugar or your powdered sugar, and 15 grams of cocoa powder. You can put it all in a big bowl and take a wire whisk and just whisk it together. You're also going to need 100 grams of egg whites, so that'll make your meringue, and that's what you take to fold the flour into. So what we're gonna do is I have my 100 grams of egg whites right here. They're at room temperature. Supposedly, you're supposed to separate the egg whites and make them aged, which just basically means you separate them, you put something on the top, put them in the fridge for a couple of days, and then bring them back out to room temperature. That's aged. I didn't do that, so we'll see how this turns out. So what we're going to do is we're going to put it in your stand mixer. With your stand mixer and meringue, you have to always make sure that you use metal. You can't use plastic or anything, or else the meringue won't hold up. So what I've done is I've wiped everything down with vinegar to make sure there's no grease or anything in my stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and add this. And then I'm going to turn on my mixer, and we're just going to mix it until it gets kind of bubbly, frothy, and then we're going to add our sugar, just a little bit at a time. So bear with me. Okay, so my eggs are kind of frothy. I don't know if you would be able to see this or not. I'm going to try and take this out so you guys can kind of see it a little bit. But if you can tell, they're frothy, lots of bubbles with your eggs. So, and I think I failed to mention this, but with you're gonna have regular sugar that you use for cookies or whatever, white sugar. And it's gonna be 35 grams of sugar. And we're just gonna start mixing that in just a little bit at a time. And then on medium speed. And then we're just going to mix it until our meringue forms, and we're gonna make it till stiff peaks. So we'll just start this, and depending on your machine, it can take about 7 to 10 minutes, just depending. Medium, high speed. Okay, I'm gonna add a little bit more sugar. Okay, and then I'm gonna add the last little bit of sugar, and then we're gonna mix it until stiff peaks form. Okay. So what I've done is my mixer's been mixing my egg whites for about 6 minutes or so, and I want to check them and see if they're at the stiff peak yet. So what we're going to do is we're going to kind of take out your whisk, mix it around a little bit in your mixer, get things out. Okay, and then what you're supposed to do, I've made meringue before, but I've usually made Swiss meringue buttercream to go on my cake, so this is a little bit different. So what you're supposed to do is stick your whisk in and slowly pull it out, and then you're supposed to have a stiff peak on there. Obviously, I don't have a peak. Obviously, it didn't come up very well, so let's try that again. Alright, so we're going to mix it up just slightly and see if we can get this to at least give us some sort of peak. And it's not. But there's an itty bitty peak right here, and it's kind of set up. So try it one more time, see if it works. Okay, go down, slowly back up, and there's no peak. So this might be a flop at the very end, but we'll give it a shot. But if you can tell, I've got these little peaks here and they're standing straight up. So let's hope, fingers crossed, that this is the consistency that they're wanting. So from here, we are going to look at the recipe, make sure we're doing this right. Okay, so I've got a bump in the bottom of my bowl. So I don't want a bump in the bottom of my bowl because then I can't scrape everything up and make sure everything's mixed well. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna transfer the meringue into this nice big bowl. And I have wiped it clean with vinegar to make sure there's no grease. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna slowly add our flour mixture to our meringue and we're gonna fold it together. I usually make a lot of funny faces when I cook, so just bear with me. Okay, so I've got all of my meringue, see how nice and fluffy it is, in my bowl. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna add part of our flour mixture to it, but we're also gonna sift it at the same time. If you don't sift very well, then you have lumps of flour or cocoa or little pieces of almonds that can get left over, and then those will be stuck in the top of your macarons and they won't make them look pretty. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and put some of this in the sifter and we're going to sift it in and then we're going to fold it in. So here we go. I'm going to take some of our mixture, put it in the sifter, and we'll probably do this in 2, maybe 3 batches. So we'll see. Okay, I'll sift it over. Ingredients. Sifter slow. Okay, and if there's any little crumblies left in the bottom of your sifter, don't worry about it. Just set it off to the side, okay? Actually, I'm gonna dump them out so they don't get in my stuff. Okay, and to fold, what we're gonna do is, you probably can't see this, but we're gonna go down the middle of your mixture, and then we're gonna fold around, go all the way around, and do it again. Down the middle, kind of squish it for this one, and go squish it against the bowl, and then go around the bowl, okay? And then just keep folding. Down the middle, squish it against the bowl, and around. Just until it starts forming a mixture. Right, put this in there, we'll mix it up a little bit more, and then put our final little bit in there. Okay. Okay, so I'm excited to kind of see how these turn out. I have a feeling they'll probably be a flop, but practice makes perfect, right? I think I'm ready to put the last little bit in. Pull it up on my paper here, and I'm just going to dump it right on in. Try and dump it as gently as possible so you don't get any left on the bottom, because it'll, you know, come out of your sifter on the counter. And you want to try and save as much of that as possible. Okay. Try and get this mixed up as good as I can. And with macarons, you want to try and make it so that there's no lumps on top, but I guess you still don't want to try and mix this too much or else they won't rise. So, I guess there's a fine line, and I don't know which fine line we're going to be on, the right side or the wrong side, so we'll see what happens. But this is almost, I think, almost there. My flour mixture's almost mixed into it. You want to try and scrape along the bottom, scrape along the sides, get everything mixed in. So it's nice and beautiful batter. Right, so supposedly when you lift up this and you go like this, it's supposed to fall in ribbons, which it kind of is. And so that's the consistency you're looking for. So I'm really hoping this works. Okay, so what I've done is I've pre-cut some baking sheets to fit my cookie sheets. And then on one of them, I have drawn out, can't see it very well, drawn out little circles, kind of a pattern, because you want to try and make your macarons as even as possible, because you're going to make little cookie sandwiches out of them. So they're supposed to be about 1.5 inch wide. I didn't have 1.5 inch circles for a template, so mine are going to be a little bit smaller, but you know, it's what they say, the smaller the treat, the more you can eat, right? Anyways, so what you're going to do is we're going to put this one in the bottom of our baking sheet. And we're going to put a blank one, clean one, on top. And then you can see the template through the clean baking sheet. That way when you pipe, you'll pipe about the same amount of batter for each macaron. What we're gonna do is we're gonna put our piping bag and our tip in. And this is just, it's a Wilton, I think it's Wilton. A Wilton 2A tip. I have no idea if that's too big of a tip. I have no idea if it's too small of a tip. So we'll just go from here. And we're gonna put that in the bottom. And then I need to go grab my scissors because we need to snip this end off so that our tip is. I've got my tip, I've got my bag. We're gonna go ahead and fill our bag. You don't want to fill it all the way to the top because then it squishes over. And from what I read and watched on videos is you're working the dough and you don't want to work the dough very much. So we're gonna fill it probably about half full. And then just pipe our little macarons here. And so far the dough looks good and it smells delicious. It smells like chocolate. And if you know me very well, I love chocolate. And this isn't, usually I can do this a lot neater. Obviously, I'm getting it all over the bag, but oh well. I'll just have it all over my fingers. That's usually how I bake, is just a big fat mess and I get it all over everywhere. And then I just have to clean up a big fat mess. Okay, so as you can see, it's kind of dripping out. I didn't do a little trick this lady had on one of her YouTube videos. Before you fill the piping bag, you twist it and then you tuck some of the bag into the tip so that when you're filling it, it doesn't drip out like this. So I'll just let it sit over the bowl for a minute. And I will get this up. And if you're familiar with piping at all, you're just gonna hold it at a 90-degree angle, and then you're just gonna pipe. And hopefully you can kind of, I don't know if we'll be able to do this and make you see. Ooh. Let me pipe a few and then I'll try and show you. And hopefully these will be all right. That first one looked kind of, so we'll see. Okay, I'm going to put this down for a minute, and I want to try and show you what they look like. So this is kind of what they look like. So obviously that one was my first one because it looks awkward. So I'm going to go ahead and finish piping these out, and I will show you what to do next. Okay guys, so I have piped on my macarons, and in order to get the air bubbles out, you have to take your pan and kind of tap it against the counter to get all the air bubbles out. Now the key thing with macarons is to let them sit and form a type of crust over the top so that when you touch the batter, it's not tacky or sticky against your fingers. And that takes supposedly anywhere between 30 and 60 minutes. So I'm gonna go ahead and let these sit, and then we're gonna work on our chocolate ganache that we're gonna fill it with. Before I forget, you need to turn on your oven to 325 degrees. I've already got mine on. My oven kind of varies up and down, up and down, up and down every time I turn it on. So I've got an oven thermometer in there so I can make sure that's at 325 degrees. So I'm here, I'm gonna show you how to do chocolate ganache. Chocolate ganache is really, really easy to make. So what I've got is kind of a glass bowl. And I've got 4 ounces of semi-sweet chocolate in here. They're just chocolate chips. Really, you can use whatever you want. People say to use like the really nice chocolate and to chop it up really fine and put it in your bowl and things like that. I don't use the nice chocolate. I just use, you know, my off-brand chocolate chips. So I've just got the off-brand semi-sweet chocolate chips right here. And then in my pan, what I've done is I have heated up, let's see, it's a ½ cup heavy cream with a ½ tablespoon of butter in it, and you just heat it right until the simmering point, and then just to make sure that all that butter is melted in there and it's nice and hot so that it can melt the chocolate chips. And then we're just going to pour it right over the chocolate chips. If you've chopped your chocolate really fine, then you can go ahead and put your cream, hot cream in, and wait maybe like a minute or 2 minutes and then whisk it together till it's really nice and smooth. If you use chocolate chips like I did, probably wait 3 to 4 minutes and then start mixing it. until it's nice and smooth like this. And what you're gonna do is let it cool down for a few minutes, and then you're gonna put your, leave it out at room temperature overnight and put some saran wrap on top. That way it gets nice and thick. So when you pipe it on the macarons, it's nice and thick. But when you put your saran wrap on top of your bowl, make sure it touches the actual ganache. That way it doesn't have this yucky kind of skin on top. Macarons, we want a crust that forms so it cooks really nicely, but with the ganache, no. So I'm gonna go ahead and put my saran wrap on top, and then I'm gonna set this off to the side, and then we're gonna go ahead and bake the macarons, and then I'll pull them out and show you what they look like. All right, you guys, so I'm actually pretty excited how these turned out. I was able to bake my macarons 325 for about 14 minutes. I would try 12 minutes and check them, and then if they're not done, bake them for about 2 more minutes. But they turned out pretty good. So this is what a macaron kind of looks like. It's got this little, they call it a foot right here, and it's not perfect. It's supposed to be just a little bit taller than this. Mine kind of went pancaked a little bit on the foot, but I'm actually pretty excited how they turned out. I thought they were just going to be super duper flat. So I'm going to go ahead and wait until the morning and get the ganache into a piping bag, and then we can pipe it and then try it and see how it tastes. Good morning, you guys. Today is a beautiful day, and well, it's not really beautiful out there. It's more foggy and snowy and yucky, but it's still beautiful. I've gotten dressed, I've got my makeup on, and I've got my ganache here. I've been mixing it up a little bit so that I can pipe it. And before I get started, I want to show you guys something that I did when I was washing my dishes. And I do this all the time. I left my tip in the garbage disposal on accident, and I kind of ruined it. So now I have to go get another one, which I do that very often. So I need to learn to not do that. But I've mixed up my ganache, and we're just going to put it in our bag. Piping bag, another piping bag, and then you can pipe it with a plain pipe, like a circle pipe. I decided to do kind of a fun little tip, see how it works. So we'll go ahead and just put our stuff in really fast and get out our pretty good looking macarons and start piping, and we'll try it and see how it tastes. Now, normally I'm not a bittersweet chocolate person. I like milk chocolate, and this is semi-sweet, which normally you put semi-sweet chocolates in your cookies, and I'm fine with that. So you'll see how this tastes. It might be a little bit too bitter for me, or it might, taste fantastic. So, all right, so we want to find another top that goes along pretty well with it. That's about the same shape. So I'm going to say these two are about the same shape. And we're just going to pipe on as much frosting as you desire. Which that might be a little too much frosting, because by the time you put this on, look how pretty that looks. Oh, I'm so excited. Okay, so let's give this bad boy a try and see how it tastes. That's actually really good. Even with the semi-sweet chocolate, it's delicious. So, if you know me, I'm gonna try one. They're great. And that's the end of my video. Also, I'm gonna look for more recipes to try and test at home and see if they turn out or if they're flop. If you have any ideas, comment below, and I'll try and do a video for you guys. Thanks so much.